Mr. Chairman, welcome, Committee, Mr. Secretary. I want to spend a few moments and talk about the historically strong state of our economy. Watching what's happened under President Trump with Republican leadership's commitment to tax reform, cutting burdensome regulations, this economy is booming. And it's benefiting Montanans, it's benefiting the American people. I'm struck by the job creation number, Mr. Secretary. Over 6.7 million jobs have been created since President Trump was elected. Interestingly, about 70% of those jobs, 4.6 million of the 6.7 million jobs, have been created since we passed tax reform. A national unemployment rate of 3.6%, near a 50-year low. There's a reason I left the private sector to come into public service, was to see outcomes, see results like this. Wages are growing for workers across the board, but importantly, we're seeing this blue-collar boom. Low-income Americans are experiencing the largest wage gains, and average wage growth for workers now outpaces the wage growth for managers. Americans are getting back to work. This is good for Montana. It's good for a country. Mr. Secretary, my question for you is, as you look at the tax policies that we move forward with, as we've seen now an outcome that was predictable. We saw this when President Kennedy, through his leadership, cut taxes. We saw it under President Reagan, through his leadership, cutting taxes and growing the economy and seeing wage growth and more jobs created. Which tax policies do you see as being some of the most important in keeping our economy growing?
I think there's no question the change on the corporate side from to a territorial system and encouraging companies to bring their cash back here and build jobs here has been very important. I think there's no question the pass-through deduction for small businesses has been critical, and I think there's no question the tax cuts for the middle class have put a lot of money back in people's pocket that they can save or spend.
So you brought up the pass-through issue. I'd like to talk a bit about that we call it the Main Street tax relief, as we were having discussions back before we passed the bill between the C-Corp side and the pass-through side, or I like to call it the Main Street businesses side. In Montana, 90% of our businesses are actually small businesses. It would be on the pass-through side. In fact, according to a recent Square Gallup survey just last month, 69% of small business owners say their business benefited from the 2017 tax law. 69%. More than 7 in 10 say they reinvested over 1/4 of the savings that resulted from the tax law back into their businesses. And I can tell you that's why myself, along with Senator Roberts, Senator Thune, Senator Blackburn, introduced the Main Street Tax Certainty Act, which would make that 20% deduction with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent. I think it's critical we work towards this on behalf of our small businesses. Question for you, Mr. Secretary, is how does making this 20% deduction permanent, as the President's budget proposes, help to increase business certainty and provide confidence for job creators to invest and grow their businesses?
Well, as you've commented, those small businesses are the backbone of a large part of the economy, not just in your state, but in other states. And providing that tax relief gives those businesses more money to put back into their businesses to hire additional people and go out and make capital investments.